Hey, and welcome back to another episode. We've all heard last month in June, it was kind of like the AI month. All you heard was AI. We had Jeff Gibbons on, who was talking about the importance of critical thinking. We had Paul Slater on there, who was talking about, how to implement AI strategies and are we AI human ready? We heard from Kate Marshall, and she talked about the importance of making sure that you train people appropriately in order to be able to use AI and which AI skill we can use. But in this episode, I want to give you my take. I want to give you my personal take on where we break down some big ideas into practical truths that you can actually use. And today's topic cuts through one of the loudest fears out there right now, that AI is replacing people. I've heard it over and over again, and I'm hearing it in the comment section that says, no, you're out of touch with reality. You don't know what's going on. AI is really getting rid of people. And I'm going to challenge that because AI is not replacing you. They're not replacing you directly. It's displacing you, which you might say, well, that's the same thing. Not really, because I want you to think about the direction of where this is really going. And people misunderstand the problem. And because they have fears and the narrative that's out there, they think their future is going to be, horrible and it's going to be the wrong future. I want to prepare you for the right future. So let's take a second and go back in time to when you had a secretary in almost every single office that you went into. You had typewriters, you had people who would get documents together. The secretaries were the lifeline of your organization. They kept you organized. They kept your files. They knew where your files were. They would go get them. They'd come back with them. They'd do dictation. They'd write up your documents. They'd prepare everything for you. And that was a skilled professional force. Then came computers, and they showed up and they went on your desk. And people thought, oh, well, secretaries will now use computers. Well, computers really displaced the secretaries because instead of having somebody else file your documents away physically, well, now they're filed away electronically. Instead of having your documents scanned and faxed, now they're scanned and stored in emails. And that was a transition that over a period of years, you saw a phasing out of secretaries. Now we have executive assistants and we have other secretaries in different formats that do it on a digital scale, but only really executives get that. Not every office gets that. And so it's up to you, the end user, the worker, the guy now adding another task to your thing, to your daily task list of organizing my emails, filing away my own documents, having knowledge management, and following the knowledge management protocols. And that's stuff that secretaries used to do. Well, when the computers came around, that replaced the secretary and it displaced them. And that skill set went away. And I want you to think about the skill set, right? Because emails and everything else are just another task that you have to do. It's not necessarily a skill, it's a task. It's something that you complete. Filing away documents and appropriately filing them, that is a skill. And the role and the demand for secretaries greatly diminished. They didn't vanish. They just became different. Like I said, executive assistants, they became operating, coordinators and project managers and office administrators, and you have an office manager now. It just transformed it into a different way where instead you needed like 5 or 6 per organization. Now you need 1. It didn't eliminate it. It just transformed it and displaced it in a different way. And now as we fast forward to today, AI is doing a very similar thing, just faster and on a larger scale. And I think it's, taking over, cognitive repetitive tasks. It's not the physical at this time, but the mental ones. Writing basic emails, summarizing documents, generating reports, evaluating drafted content. And even in the education realm, we're seeing where teachers are grading papers with AI and how much things are AI generated and AI not generated, how much it is done through Grammarly. That's a form of AI, even though it's kind of like an automated task. It's looking for how much you plagiarize. Now they're looking for how much AI is in AI, which is crazy using AI to do that. I think it's kind of funny if you think about it. So when people look at these things and they go, oh, well, that's it. The AI is coming. They're replacing my job. And that's not really actually what's happening. AI isn't removing the need for people, it's removing the need for certain ways of working. And if your value is tied to those ways, then yeah, you are at risk. If you do menial tasks that don't really require much skill or much thought or effort, yeah, you could be coming at risk, but you're not going to be eliminated because AI doesn't really look into the human element of stuff. It wants to make you happy, it wants to get the job done, but it doesn't really do a good job at evaluating certain things the way a person would evaluate it. So there's always going to be a human in the loop, at least for the next foreseeable future, the next 3 to 5 years. That's just my take. And if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. But what's more important is that you adopt a skill set. Skills are what's going to make you invaluable in the future, and you'll become more valuable over time. And I just recently experienced this, and I kind of want to go over it, share a little story with you. So I just moved from the Northeast back down to the South, and I'm getting used to the heat, which is okay. Going from 60-degree, 70-degree nice weather down to 110. A little bit shock to the system, but we're making it and we'll be okay. I grew up here, we'll be fine. So when I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I need new floors in my house. I'll just put them down myself. And hats off to all of you people who are in the flooring business and do this day in and day out. Like it literally blew out my knees, blew out my ankles, blew out my back, which are all bad anyway. But that just like further exacerbated the problem because I was like, you know what? I can do this. I looked up a YouTube video on how to do it. I looked up YouTube short clips on how to solve the tricky parts around the door hinges and around the entryways and how to, transition from one room to another room. And over a week, it took me to get these floors done. But at a cost, right? Because I still had to outsource some of it to come fix on the areas that I messed up, and I just didn't know how to do it because I lacked the skill to do it appropriately. Did it get done to a high standard? Yeah, because I'm a perfectionist and I refuse to give up on certain things, but it didn't get done the way a skilled craftsman in the profession would have gotten it done. It just got done and it was okay. But if a skilled person would have come in and done it, they probably could have done it in a day, which took me a week, which took me a longer time. But again, it's the skill that really made it valuable. So when I did break down and say, "Hey, I need someone to come in and help me out for it," when they gave me the price, I was like, "You know what? It's worth it. Worth the time, worth the effort that I just don't have to put into it." And I really respect you guys for doing it. Even having done it myself, it's a lot harder than you think it is to get done. My hat's off to all you flooring people out there. Great job on everything you do day in and day out. I am sure it goes underappreciated, not appreciated, but underappreciated for all the toll it takes on your body and all the skill it actually takes to get it done. But even with that, right? We still have all this knowledge, we still have all this ability out there to find out how to do things. But the problem we're running into is the ability to actually implement the skill. We're finding in the workplace that people don't lack the ability to find the knowledge. They don't lack the ability to find the data. They lack the ability to actually implement that data and that knowledge because they haven't internalized it. It hasn't become a part of their normal skill set. And I think about this growing up, in the military, you learned every individual position's job on the team. You knew, how to put in a generator. You knew how to put up the tower. You knew how to do a line of sight antenna. You knew how to set up a satellite dish. You knew how to set up a radio, load a radio, take out a radio, install a radio kit into a system. And you learned how to do all of these things. Was I a subject matter expert at any of them? No, but I knew how to do it initially, right? I was taught this is how you do it and this is why it's important. And then when I got to different units, I met with different NCOs and they taught me more and more about the intricacies of these things. And I remember talking to one of my mentors and we were talking about the difference between digital and analog communication, whether DSL dial up, internet back in the day, this is like early 2000s, whether DSL dial up was better than cable modem internet. And I was of the opinion that cable modem was faster and better. And he was like, well, actually, DSL is the better technology. And we broke it down to the wave patterns, and we broke it down to the different channels and the bandwidth availability between each. And DSL actually kind of won out in the end, I have to admit, as far as like a better technology, not necessarily with throughput, but with reliability and availability. And that's why we used it for a long time. I don't know how many of you out there today have to unplug a house phone. If you have to say what is a house phone, you go ask your parents, because we're way past that. But you had to unplug your house phone to plug in your internet modem, to then plug it into your computer, to then dial up to get over to the internet. You couldn't do both at the same time. And then we figured out how to do both at the same time. So that took skill and knowledge and comprehensive knowledge on how to do those things, right? It took the ability to know how the technology worked from start to finish, from the basic foundations of how things worked. Even when it came to computers, right? How do you take apart a computer? How do you put together a computer? These are basic things that you'd had to know. Today, if you ask somebody, well, how do you take apart a computer? I guarantee you they probably don't know how to tell you how it could be taken apart and put together. Or they'll look at a video and say, well, this is how you do it. We'll say, okay, fine, implement it and do it and make sure it works when it comes back. Much harder to do. And we're seeing that in the workplace today. People come into the workplace, they have access to a million things. And they say, well, I know this, I know that. Just because you read it doesn't mean you know it. It just means that you know how to get the information, you know how to get the data, but you don't know how to implement it. And that's what we're finding a failure at the execution level. And it's really important then that as AI is coming up and as it's telling you how to do things and solve problems and implement things, we lack the skills to do it. That's why we're seeing a huge rise of, blue collar work, manual labor. And there's nothing wrong with blue collar work. I just call it blue collar work because that's what I grew up with, blue collar, white collar. You're in an office or you're outside working on things. Those were kind of what it was. In the Navy, you're either brown shoe or black shoe. It's just what it is. So when you take a look at these things and you go, we're seeing the resurgence of electricians, roofers, carpentry work, flooring, you name it. We're seeing a huge resurgence of these things because people are lacking those skills. And we're building things like data centers all over the place where we're storing all of this data in order to make AI work. But we need people to do it. We need people to come in and be electricians and set up the wiring and the electricity and the power to make sure everything's evenly distributed. AI can tell you how to do it, but having worked with electricity myself, I've been electrocuted a lot more than I want to admit. And it's because I wasn't skilled at doing it. And so you need these skills and to do these things and to implement this stuff. So you can Google, how do I run a business? How do I start up a business? How do I write a resume? How do you lose weight? How do I develop a team or lead a team? You can ask AI all these things and they will tell you how to do it. But if you haven't developed the skill set along the way, if you haven't studied, if you haven't read, if you haven't internalized it, if you lack self-awareness on any of these things, you're never going to be able to implement it. And that's why books, there's a billion books out there for everything. If you want to know on any subject on how to do something, there's a book out there for it. But it's written from that person's perspective and how it worked for them, not necessarily that it could be a blueprint for you. There are good blueprint books out there, but they're really rare and few and far between. You have to study, you have to know, you have to make things a skill in order to be able to implement. And here are some of the rising skills that are desperately needed in today's workforce. You talk to any executive, any CEO, they're going to tell you that these are the things that are missing from their workforce. It's not knowledge or an answer or data. We got tons of that. That doesn't really matter. What matters is decision making under uncertainty. AI can't do that for you. They can kind of replicate it. They can kind of help you through the way, but they can't really give you that gut check. They can't really give you that experience that you've developed along the way to see that future pattern of things unfolding, because AI can't do that for you. A communication that actually influences people. AI can tell you what to say, but it can't tell you how to say it. Can't tell you the inflection of it. It can give you some feedback, but only another person can give you real feedback and trial and error and developing that skill. Discipline and execution over time, right? Are you disciplined enough not to do certain things or to do certain things in order to achieve an outcome over time? Most people want a quick fix. Everybody wants a fix right now. I need this done right now. And guess what? It's just not going to happen. Some things take time, and it takes the discipline and the grit to get through it. The other thing is critical thinking and judgment. AI cannot be your critical thinker. You have to think critically yourself. You have to think about your thinking. And I know that sounds really kind of crazy, but you really need to internalize that. Like, what am I thinking? How am I thinking? What are my biases? Do I understand my biases? Am I self aware to even know that I have biases? And how can I overcome that? And we need to be more intentional about our thinking and not just read something and take it at face value, not just go off of whatever, AI spits out to you. And I'm reminded of the movie Idiocracy. I've said this before. Well, it's got electrolytes, right? Well, why are plants not growing? Well, we feed it Bronto. It has electrolytes. Well, why? Because AI told you that? Because some search engine told you that? Yeah, sure. But it doesn't make it true. So we got to be able to have good judgment and to know when something isn't right and when something is right. And because we lack the foundational knowledge and skill set of this, we're falling behind. So I want to kind of give you some practical applications on what we can do in order to hone this in. I want you to be able to move forward and say, you know what, I could put this in my kit bag, and here is how I can avoid being displaced. Here's how I can develop these skills to be effective. Here's how I can close the gap, and I can see where the opportunity is and be more value added to my organization. And if your current role is heavily task based, it means that it relies on a repeatable process, and AI will likely absorb that portion of your work. Not all of it, but most of it, but enough to change expectations from you. You won't be paid just to do a task anymore. You're going to be expected to interpret results, make decisions, and add context to what's being fed to you that drive outcomes and achieve results. People are going to know, what is the risk and what does it cost? What do I have to do to avoid that risk? Is that risk okay? Is it not okay? Should we assume it? Who's going to assume it? And at what level does that impact things? In other words, your job is going to shift from doing the work to owning the result. You know, and we've heard from Scott Abbott, in the last episode where he just said that if you use AI and you push something out, you own it. It's yours. Real leaders and real people are going to expect you, no matter what AI tells you, you own it. And that is a higher standard than what we're expected today. And that ceiling is also going to be a little bit higher as well. And this is where people get stuck. They try to compete against AI instead of working with it. And that's a losing strategy. So you're not going to outright and out summarize or out process a machine that's built for speed, but you can absolutely outthink it and out execute it because you are a person, and that's a machine made by a person, and it's flawed just like you are in other ways, but you're better than a machine because we're people. So how do you position yourself in this new environment? Well, here's three things that you can do that you can help shift things in the right direction. First, shift from knowledge accumulation to skill application. Stop focusing on how much you know. Start focusing on what you can do with what you know, and executing that skill is premium. People don't want to know that if you can do something and you say you can do something, then it's going to get the result. I don't know how many contractors I've been through recently since I've just removed down here that said they could do something. They started the job, and I was like, nope, you're not doing it to standard or to quality. So goodbye. You're not doing it anymore. And knowing how to implement and execute is going to be the new sought after skill. Second, we can shift from task ownership to outcome ownership. And this used to be just really kind of focused on leaders, where leaders own the outcome of everything that they were entrusted with, but it's going to be amplified even more. So you're going to own everything that you do, whether AI does it or not. You define your value by what the results create for you. And this helps AI get you there faster. So leverage it and don't be threatened by it. Third is we can shift from an individual contributor to an amplified contributor. And AI allows you to operate at a higher level of output. Use it to expand your impact, not just maintain your role. Think about that for a second. If you are an individual contributor and you're like, yep, this is what I did, and this is how I did it, and you don't let it amplify your work to an amplified contributor, now your quality is higher, your stuff is higher, and you're going to be seen as a better person. And not a better person, but like a better worker. So if you're uncertain right now, and that's normal, don't be frustrated or misdiagnose your situation. You're not being replaced, you're being challenged to evolve. And the people who you lean on, the technology in this evolution are going to achieve that a lot quicker. And that's what's going to separate you from someone who is fighting the system right now. So here's how I want to end this. AI is not the end of human value, and you're not going to be replaced. You might be displaced, but it's the low end skill repetition that's going to be done. We need to figure out how we can make our skills premium. How do we deliver an execution? And can you do what you say you're going to do? If you can do those things, you're going to stick around no matter what AI does, because senior leaders and executives want people on their team who can get them results ethically and do what they say they can do. So if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. I really appreciate you stopping by for this episode. I'm Tim Staton, stating the obvious.